Hello, and welcome to another episode of ChargersCast. We are a fan-based podcast about everything Los Angeles Chargers. My name's Kirk Brewer. I'm your host. And like I said, we are a fan-based podcast by fans for fans. We have a lot to talk about this episode, so let's get right into it. I am joined by Andrew Loya from Bolt Casa. It's like I wasn't raised in San Diego or something. It's Bolt Casa, man, not Casa. That's too funny. And also Brennan Isham from Chargers District. These guys are regulars here on the podcast. I am thrilled to have them here with me every week, hanging out, talking ball. By the way, might as well start early. Cheers, gentlemen. We have a W to celebrate this episode.
Yep.
So I will bust out a nice cold one. Brennan's going a little light this week, which nothing wrong with that. So we got a lot to talk about. We got a W against the Saints at home in SoFi, and we're going on the road this week against the Browns, and stuff to talk about in that game too. The Browns have had some changes recently that could impact how that game goes with our beloved Bolts. So why don't we jump right into it? We got the win, 26-8. I heard a stat that was the third time in NFL history, only the third time in NFL history, that final score has ever existed in all of the NFL. It's kind of a funky score, 26-8. So it's kind of odd. We missed an extra point. They got the safety on us from the botched punt snap. And lo and behold, you get 26-8. The cool thing is we were on the winning side of that. But it was an interesting game to start diving into. Gentlemen, Andrew, Brennan, whichever one of you guys wants to kind of take the helm here, give me your overall take on this game. I like to do the high-level stuff first before we kind of start drilling down to the offensive and defensive sides of the ball. The one thing I'll start off with is this is a game we should have won, just like last week. The difference is we won it. So we took care of business, however ugly it was. We took care of business. Game we should have won, and we won it.
Yeah, the awkwardness of this game totally botched my prediction because I was on the money, 28. I was going
to save that for last, but your prediction was pretty damn good.
Well,
maybe
yeah,
not exact, but pretty damn good. You were 27-7.
What was I? Wrote it down. I was 28-7.
28-7. Okay.
Yeah, so I originally had 27, and then the confidence that you spoke with, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to hit that 28 mark and go, we're getting tutties on this one.
Okay. You're within the margin of error.
You know, the guys started off pretty awkward, making some mistakes, and, that led to some funky things, and I think that it took until the end of the first quarter where Herbert had that nice scamper where he went head-on with Tyrann Mathieu that kind of gave these guys a little bit of juice, and then we started to put it together. But it was definitely a game that, like you said, we should have won. So we put everything together and we got the W, which was most important. And what I thought my biggest takeaway from this game was just how the supporting cast finally rose to the occasion. And Justin played lights out, and the guys played great, and that was tremendous for this game.
Yeah. I mean, there's kind of a couple themes you could kind of place on that. That being one, which is the supporting cast stepped up. Number two is kind of a flip-flop. The first half was kind of funky, and then we kind of came on in the second half, which has not been the case this season. We've kind of played decent in the first half and then, let off or have a letdown or just kind of have a malaise in the second half. So that was kind of cool. Then the other thing I would say, and hop in here, Brennan, is it has become obvious to me watching this game in particular that the entire team feeds off of Justin Herbert's energy. If Justin turns that notch up. He's always Mr. Mild-mannered. But this game, he kind of brought a little attitude, and the whole team responded. It was awesome.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. I saw a quote on X and this ML Football. They said Justin Herbert had a lot of moxie during that game, and I agree. There is a couple clips I actually have that him like showing his aggression, showing his excitement, and like you said, he's usually a well-mannered guy, and on our social media, he never wants to be part of the cameras. He never wants to do any of that. But this game, he was looking at the camera, pointing at him, going like this and everything. So like you said, once Justin Herbert's hyped, the whole team goes around it. He's our leader. He's the general leading this team. So I think that was very important. When you saw him hyped, all the other players kind of stepped it up. And I agree, the supporting cast overall, they did what they were supposed to do. There was less drops, less penalties, less errors, and that, I think, was the difference between the game with us. We had a good amount of third downs in the second half compared to theirs. We'll go into that a little later. But overall, I think Andrew said it perfect on he commented on one of my posts. The skill players did what they were supposed to do. They really, once they're able to do what they're supposed to do with less errors, I think it just makes more cleaner football, and it makes the team more pumped up, knowing that they know what they got and they can bring it to any football team.
Yeah, I hope Justin recognizes that, especially, and I think Jim's a smart dude, and I don't know what he studied in college, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was psychology. Okay, I don't know what his major was in college, but I think he's been, from the day he stepped in the building, part of what he's been working on. It's part of the golden jersey instead of the red jersey for the quarterback. You know, he wouldn't let any of the backup quarterbacks wear it for a long time. Only Justin could wear the golden jersey. He's trying to get that out of Justin, get that personality, get that. Justin's a stud, okay? And Jim takes every opportunity to voice that. And so it's nice to see Justin embrace. The kid's a crazy talent and physical specimen, like crazy. It's nice to see him. You saw him pop up after he lowered his shoulder against Tyrann Mathieu, right? I mean, and he got up and he had some attitude. He's like, I'm pointing for the first down, and it kind of started setting the tone. And then when Bradley Bozeman damn near pummeled that guy into the ground, after he rolled up on Justin intentionally trying to hurt him, I think that brought some additional attitude as well to the whole team. And you really started to see that attitude take shape. So I hope Justin realizes that the team feeds on that. And he starts, so to speak, he starts letting his hair down a little bit. It was great to see. And I think the way I interpreted that when I saw that, is the other team had been chattering, talking smack, and he was basically like, this is after the Ladd McConkey touchdown, I believe, the shorter one in the corner of the end zone. And he was like, this was a fuck you. You keep talking shit, okay? That's how I took it. Like, okay, keep it up. You're pissing me off, and I'm going to take it out on you guys. I don't know if you guys saw it that way, but I did, and I love the attitude. This is a sport. It's a physical sport, and, Justin saw that guy, absolutely. He was intentionally trying to hurt Justin. And he saw his center. It was instant. Like, that guy went instantly seeing red, and he was ready to rip that guy's head off. And all of that, I think, just culminated in what turned out to be the later part of the second quarter and a productive second half. Let's kind of jump into some of the details here. A couple notes I made for myself. We won the field position battle this game. I thought was really important. Just kind of a note. That was one of my keys to the game. Overall, it was fairly even. If you look at the total yards, look at the rushing yards, look at the passing yards. It was almost identical. Not quite, but it was almost identical between the two teams. No turnovers because the refs boned Molden. That was an interception. The replay made it was pretty clear. He secured that ball before it touched the ground. And then we had a couple bad calls in the second quarter. Molden's interception being one of them, Fajoko's touchdown being the other. Luckily, we still scored on that. JK got the 1 yard rush, but it was a fairly even battle. We just, I think, put our will on that second half and separated from them. But otherwise, it was kind of back and forth for a while there.
Yeah, my main takeaway is our defense is damn good. I feel like if it wasn't as good, they could easily have racked up a lot of points. They were roughly 3 and 14 for third downs. If it was any higher than that, or if they capitalized on our first 3 and outs, we had 3 and outs in the first second quarter. So our defense really held up, stepped it up, and was able to let the offense take over in the second half. One person I would like to highlight on that defense, I'm always high on the kid, but is Cam Hart. He that hit on Chris Olave was beautiful. I think he's really and Tarheeb Still, they're really stepping up for quarterbacks, and it's making it really cool to watch. But I think our defense is really, really good. We're still number 1 in points allowed. I think it's roughly around 13 evenly on average. So I'm pretty happy with what our defense has been accomplishing, considering we're usually a high-powered offense and an okay defense. And it's kind of the opposite. So I like to see our defense doing good, especially with Joey Bosa not in. They're stepping up, Tui Tuipulotu, Khalil Mack, obviously, even Bud Dupree. So I'm very excited to see what the defense can do going forward.
Oh, man, it's funny you bring up Joey Bosa. My friend texted me during the game, how long before Joey Bosa's on the sideline hurting? And then it happened right after that. I was like, oh, goodness.
Yeah.
But yeah, with the defense, one of my keys, going into the game was secure tackles and finish strong in the fourth quarter. And I feel like they really did do a good job at that. I think there were a couple instances where, with their rushing yards, it's like Alvin Kamara, you guys remember, we're trying, Bud Dupree's trying to strip the ball. He had a few runs that just got away from us, us trying to get a little more out of the situation than what was really there. So that's kind of how I saw that whole thing. And then another one, which was the most important thing for me, was, converting the red zone opportunities into touchdowns. And we did exactly that. And the receivers, I said, the receiving game needs to pose a threat, to lighten up the boxes. And they did that. Those guys made some big plays. Even Joshua Plummer, he only had 2 receptions, and it was for 70 yards or something.
Yeah,
either way, obviously Ladd McConkey lit it up, but and then J.K. Dobbins didn't have the greatest night rushing, but the things that stood out to me were he had some good hard fought runs, where he was. You guys remember he was getting hit behind the line and then extended those plays into first downs. That's what matters. I said, I want a 100-yard game out of you, but I'll take that instead. So those are the things that stood out to me the most in this game.
Yeah, that's a really important point. A lot of people sometimes will be disappointed in a run game if they're not putting up, big yardage. But number one, it keeps the defense honest. You got to stick with it. The moment you abandon it and become one-dimensional, defenses can tee off on you. And that goes both ways. right? We were talking about stacking the box, right? And not being able to throw over the top. So it goes both ways. If you're just a passing game, then all of a sudden they spread out and they, start playing nickel and dime, right? If you can't run on them. So it's really important to stick with it, even if you're just banging for 2s and 3s. And for any of us who have lived, through like one of the greatest running backs of all time, the LaDainian Tomlinson days, there were plenty of days where LaDainian would be banging for 2s and 3s, and it was kind of mid-third quarter. All of a sudden, holes were starting to get a little bit bigger. That jump cut was paying off, and LT started breaking, the 10s and 12s and the 15s and the 20s. So JK's got the talent to do that as well. So sticking with that is critical. So I'm glad to see they did. And JK, he's a tough kid, man. He was having none of that. That one run. I am surprised that refs did not blow the whistle on that one run, because he was getting mugged by like 3 or 4 dudes, and he spun out of that and picked up the first down for 12, 13, 14 yards. It was beautiful. So very, very important. That was one of my notes on the offense, is we stuck with the run, which kept it honest on the defense. And then, of course, Justin using his wheels also gave a whole nother dimension to what the defense has to pay attention to. And that first one where he turned on the jets, and those 2 defenders are like, they took a bad angle because they're like thinking he's not as fast as he is. And he split the middle of those guys and just kept running until Tyrann Mathieu came up, and he's like, I'm bigger than you are. I'm going to go ahead and lower my shoulder. I think it was that whole attitude with Justin that was just awesome to see. So that's a whole nother dynamic to our running game.
To add to the psychology thing you spoke on earlier, too, is I'd like to add that, there's like that little mental game. Like, there's a reason. I think Justin Herbert hit him for a reason, didn't go out of bounds. There was a little bit of him wanting to get that contact with him. But then if you notice, he made sure to be the first one to pop up and to kind of tower over Tyrann and point. And that's all for a reason. And I love seeing that out of Justin Herbert. And that, that just kind of reminded me of what you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, more of that, please.
We'll take it. I mean, we don't want the contact necessarily, but, he's smart. He is very smart with the football. He doesn't do this all the time. So when it comes time to do those kind of things, I love to see it. And it gave me the vibe of week 1 when he got his first start, guys, when he cracked that linebacker in Kansas City. I got that vibe. Tyrann's a tough dude. He got up, but Justin got up first, so that's pretty cool.
Justin is a big dude, man. I don't have his measurables in front of me, but he's literally 6'6", 250, 260.
So you were close. I actually looked it up yesterday because this guy said he doesn't want to see that from Justin Herbert again on my page, and I said I can understand based off his injury aspect, but I looked it up to give him the insights. He's 6'6", and he's roughly about 240 pounds. So that is huge for a quarterback. And one thing about him is he can take a hit. And most of the time, those cornerbacks, those safeties aren't going to be as big as him. So he can definitely endure that pain in those hits. And like Andrew said, if he can endure that hit and put a little bit of psychological warfare on the other team, might as well go for it, because I think that's what sparked our offense and made us really start scoring.
Yeah, well, and 2 things on that. You want to be the one delivering the hit, right? First off, and he did. He delivered the hit. Number 2 is he used his left shoulder. Okay, so he was smart about it. He used his left shoulder and laid the wood. You can't. It is a psychological game, and I don't think you can underplay the psychology that Justin is developing at this stage of his career. Right, he's not a kid anymore. He's a full-grown man, both physically and mentally now, and he's got a coach that is letting him know, look, you're special. You got the tools here, and we're going to give you the support you need to be who you can be. And I also think Justin's getting tired of freaking losing. And and that's part of what I saw yesterday too, is he's like, okay, enough of this shit. If I have to do what I have to do to get the W, then I'm going to do it. And that's part of why he was slinging the thing all over the yard, too. It's pretty sweet. As far as the offense goes, like I said, it was balanced. We stuck to the run, good mix with the passing game. Ladd was 6 for 6. He didn't drop a ball like he did the previous week. No drops, which is beautiful to see him step up because he's got such good hands. It's one of the things I always look for in a receiver first and foremost is do they catch with their hands or let the ball get into their body? Ladd is a natural hands catcher, and ever since I saw him during the draft, I'm like, wow, this kid's special. And he showed it yesterday or this Sunday. It was a great showing by him. And then, we took the several deep shots that we've been talking about on the pod for a while now. Rager got one. Palmer got one. Ladd's wasn't super deep, but he took it to the house, with his yak. So it was a good showing by the offense. And I think it was nice to put some stuff on tape that defenses need to – it's like, okay, we're going to need to pick our poison.
Yeah, I was really impressed by the receivers. Like Andrew was touching on it earlier, they stepped up. They're making some really good catches, like a lot of deep balls for sure. That Jalen Rager catch was beautiful in my opinion. So it was good to see them actually start, getting those deep balls, making the sticks, keep going forward. And when you have a passing game where you can pose a deep threat, I think that's really important, especially with Darius Davis and QJ out. We're really thin on receivers, in my opinion, and they really stepped it up, as well as Will Dissly. I think he's been a reliable tight end to get those 5-6 yards, even some of those first downs. So I think it was a upgrade from our last game, considering we got in the end zone and we were able to make some good plays.
Thanks for mentioning Dissly. Andrew, if you've got anything to say on Dissly, but I am really appreciating seeing him. I think he's getting more opportunities with us, especially with Hurst out. And it's really cool to see him kind of blossoming on the receiver side. He's very capable. So it's pretty cool. And we know how good of a blocker is. So, Dissly deserves some kudos. Last couple of weeks, he's been stepping up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Justin Herbert kind of amplifies anybody's potential if you're ready to rise to the occasion. Going back to Ladd McConkey, I think we just kind of saw when there's someone outside of him who can take care of business, what he can do, because it relieves so much. And not to mention, I think he was a little more healthier, but going the distance in this season, when you look at Ladd, this is what we saw is why it's so important that either these guys continue to step it up because it's going to help his game, or we may need to get some help because you saw what Ladd did, and I think that had a little bit to do with everybody being a threat. Not everyone was able just to focus in on Ladd, and he didn't have guys playing off him and smacking him around. Everyone was kind of posing a threat, and that really helps Ladd out. So I hope that we continue to do that going forward because that was an incredible performance.
Yeah, and this wasn't necessarily a spot where I was going to talk about players coming back, but hopefully, QJ is not on IR; he's just out. So hopefully, QJ is ready to come back. And then we've been talking for weeks now because his window's open for DJ. His window coming off of IR. So fingers crossed that we get DJ Chark because he's that guy. He's that guy. He's the guy you're going to put on the outside, and he's going to take the top off the defense. And he's a very capable receiver on those long balls. I don't know how much you guys watched him in camp, but he's a natural catching the ball over his shoulder on those deep routes. So it'll be an interesting dynamic when he's back in the mix, how this offense functions. And then QJ brings his own element as well that you've noticed we've kind of, without him in the mix, we've kind of missed it a little bit. So it's nice to see that our offensive coordinator and, what's his name, Sanjay Lau, the receivers coach, he's been doing a tremendous job with these guys. And they've been playing to QJ's strengths. So it'd be nice to get QJ back too.
Yeah, one person I wanted to highlight, and because I feel like he's just that guy, being able to play every single defense, offense, and special teams. You guys probably know who I'm talking about now, but Scott Matlock. I don't think it's probably been years since we've seen a guy catch the ball, get a sack, and make multiple tackles on special teams and just throughout the game. So I think it's cool to see that Jim Harbaugh's using him correctly. I was actually going to say that about QJ, not to get too ahead of myself, but I think we're seeing the new Harbaugh era come to light because there's been a couple players who just haven't been performing, and he's using them the right way, and they're succeeding this year. Like QJ and Scott Matlock, never would we thought he would be the fullback. He made a great block for that TD with J.K. Dobbins.
He crushed that dude.
He's a great blocker. We saw he can catch, and he made that sack. So I just wanted to highlight him, too, because I think he did a great job, and it just adds another piece to our team. So
for sure. Yeah. You can't say enough. The guy, I don't know if it's been a long time since somebody's put up all the reps he's put up in all the different categories, offense, defense, and special teams. Says a lot about his athleticism, and not just his athleticism, but his physical conditioning. That's not easy, and he's not a small boy. So yeah, it's pretty cool to see. And of course, he's embracing it, which is awesome. What do you guys say? We roll into the D real quick. We still got a whole nother game to talk about, which is the coming road game in Cleveland against the Browns. For me, it was kind of status quo. They seem to be kind of bend, don't break. They're not completely shutting down offenses, but they're limiting them. And ultimately, they're keeping them from putting up points. And that's the only stat that matters at the end of the day is points scored. They could put up 500 yards, but if they score 6 points, who cares about the 500 yards at the end of the day? Everybody's going to forget about that when you got the W in the win column, right? And so our defense is playing great. And what's scary is I think they can continue to get better. We've got these rookies that are contributing. Cam, especially after they got that bogus call last week against Marvin Harrison Jr., which is total joke, that roughing call. And he comes in and lays the wood on Olave. And you notice he stayed a little higher, but not too high, and got that shoulder right under his chin strap. That was a thing of beauty. So I noticed Christian Fulton played, but not a lot. He got about 40 or 50 snaps. So the young guys were picking up some. Jasir was picking up some. So it was kind of all hands on deck back in the secondary. But all in all, it was a good performance. It was kind of status quo, other than we didn't get any turnovers. We had a turnover that got robbed from us. But, we didn't have any turnovers. And we only had 3 sacks. It felt like we should have had more, but we didn't. We only had 3 sacks. But it was a solid performance. What did you guys see?
Yeah, I don't really have. I think you said it pretty good right there. You really summarized it pretty well. But yeah, Brandon, when you mentioned it earlier with that crack, that's the one thing that stood out to me in this game was just he wasn't shy about what happened last week and just laid the wood, and that was pretty sweet. And then let's Bud Dupree, that situation as far as trying to strip the ball, we can clean it up. But yeah, that's about it for me on the defense.
Yeah, you guys perfectly summed up in my opinion, but I think it's a difference maker when you're only allowing 8 to 13 points a game, especially with some of these offenses that we've played. I think it's a huge difference maker. I think Jesse Minter is a defensive genius. he's really elevated this defense, especially with the injuries he's had to overcome on his defense. He's put those other guys in place, and they've been firing away. They've been executing, and like you guys said, couldn't be more happier with our defense at the moment.
Yeah, and you just brought up something. You start calling Jesse Mentor a genius. We've talked about it a couple times on the pod. I hope we have him for at least 3 seasons. Okay, this is the NFL. Some people are going to start knocking on his door real soon, offering him a promotion if things continue the way they've continued. So hopefully we at least have him for an extended period, 3 seasons or so, and then maybe one of his students can come up underneath him and kind of carry the torch and keep the same defense in place. It's just so early on, and it's refreshing to see our defense finally holding up their end of the bargain. And shit, man, we're 7 games into the season, and you're kind of already going, yeah, this guy's pretty special, and thinking about his exit. It's too soon to think about his exit. So hopefully he's loyal to Harbaugh. His dad's in coaching with us too, and hopefully there's a sense of maybe some family there that he knows that'll come eventually, and he invests the time here to get us hopefully to the Holy Grail. That would be really nice.
That's the idea, man. This is so crazy that last year in the last, just the Staley regime, where we sat bottom 5 in almost every statistical category when it came to the defense. And this year, the first year in the Harbaugh regime, thank you, Jesse Mentor, we're top 5, if not, we're one of the best defenses in the NFL. This is crazy, and it's crazy good. It feels awesome. So, yeah, ideally, the offense, once the offense can kind of start putting points on the board a little more frequently, my goodness, I want to see it. So I hope we get a few more years of this, because this is awesome. It feels
if you can hold teams under 14 points, and you got Justin Herbert as your quarterback, and Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater as your tackles, I would say you should win the majority of your games. I mean, overwhelming majority, 80-20, 90-10. I mean, those are really good numbers, especially when all the rules these days are set up for offense, right?
Yeah.
And you got a quarterback who can sling it all over the yard. So, real quick, let's talk about special teams then. Defense held up their end of the bargain. It's really the kind of the subject here, with the comment. Special teams. It's kind of a little off game for these guys. They have a little bit of things they can clean up, and I suspect it's literally, business as usual for them. These were anomalous things, but the missed snap on the punt, the long snapper snapped it to a different spot. He literally snapped it to a different spot. So he and JK weren't on the same page as far as where JK was, going to make his directional punt from. And so that should be an easy cleanup. But we're really, really fortunate that was only a safety and not a touchdown, because it was really close to being recovered in the end zone. And then Dicker has not missed a kick his entire career inside 50 yards. He's 56 for 56 or whatever that number is. It's really good. He's missed 2 extra points in his career. One of them Sunday. What the hell? It's a chip shot. How bad do you have to pull it when you're that close to the goalpost, but within 50, the kid's money? So again, an anomaly probably more than anything, but special teams, it was for them. I guess you consider it an off game.
Yeah, I think we pay that long snapper a decent amount of money too to be a long snapper, and so that's really uncharacteristic of him to have that mess up. And like you pointed out, it was in the wrong direction, so I think it was just one of those errors. Not everyone's perfect in football, and that's not something we normally see, so I can put that one behind us. And yeah, I wish I knew a little bit more about like high level kicking and how that works.
Right.
But he's
Laces
doing
out. Laces out.
he seems to be doing everything else right, so I'm good with it. I'm moving on.
Yeah, after him scoring 5 field goals, I feel like no one of his teammates, not even one fan, can say anything about that extra point. Personally, I know it's an extra point and he should make that, but he scored every single one of our points in the Cardinals game and still made it close for us. When in reality, I feel like it shouldn't have been. So I just exit out and don't even think that happened anymore. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure our long snapper's name is Josh Harris.
Yes,
He So I think that was an anomaly too. He does get paid a good amount, like Andrew said, and I think he made a good adjustment. I saw him on the sidelines really down on himself. Ryan Ficken walked over to him, told him, "Hey, it's all right, nothing, it's all good," and then he cleaned it up. So like you guys said, I think it was just an anomaly and maybe a little bit of an off game, but they did what they were supposed to do, and that play where they did get a safety. I don't know what player it was on our special teams, but he made a great play and he pretty much punched the football out of bounds. So I thought that was really smart because obviously 2 is better than 6 at that moment. So I think with what we had to work with, that was a really smart decision. But other than that, you guys have said everything perfectly there.
Yeah, it's funny. JK tried to actually field that punt, and at that point, I'm not sure what thought he was going to try and do with it, to be honest with you, because he was in the end zone. He should have been the one to punch it out, but I think it was Haskins, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was Haskins.
Yeah, I think it was.
I think you're right.
That thank God he was thinking, and he's a special teams ace. That's why we brought him over, even though he's been kind of picking up some slack as the third running back. But thank goodness he was thinking, yeah, no, this thing has to get out of the end zone now. So, yeah, enough said. I mean, our special teams has been incredible, but it was an off game for them, relatively. I mean, we hold them to a high standard. Coverage teams have been awesome. Our coverage teams have been playing really good. So, all in all, I think, it was a good game. It was a solid game all the way around by all three sides of the team. So just a little off for the special.
They had that nice coverage and that nice tackle on one of the punts too. You guys remember that? Right when he caught it, just laid him out. I'm
surprised he did not. That was a punt. Surprised he did not call that for fair catch because our guys were right there ready to lay him out. Yeah. I was a little shocked. I'm like, as our guys are getting ready to hit him, I'm like, did maybe the TV crew pan to him too late and he'd already called for the fair catch? Because that was an easy one. We didn't, it was catch it and nail him. So, let's talk a little bit about this upcoming road game. A few things I'll throw out for discussion as far as, big overview things. Obviously, Watson's out and Winston's in. And Winston's in for the rest of the season. For us, we don't really care, but that's who's in this week as we're going to Cleveland to play him. Winston played last week, and they got an upset win against the Baltimore Ravens, who are not a pushover by any stretch of the imagination. And we all know what Jameson did down in Tampa Bay. He had a 5,000, if not multiple 5,000-yard seasons. I know he had at least one down there. It didn't equate to winning, but he threw the crap out of the ball, so he definitely can throw it. Personally, I think having Watson in Winston in is an improvement over Watson. So kind of would have maybe preferred to have Winston come in after we leave Cleveland. But we got to deal with Jameson Winston. There's no Amari Cooper. He's in Buffalo now. But they still have talent at their skill positions. What's interesting is Nick Chubb isn't their leading rusher right now. I didn't get a chance to do enough research to see if he's been hurt, but he doesn't have that many carries, so I suspect he has been hurt. Jerome Ford is actually leading the pack as far as a rusher. I don't know a lot about him. And then Deontay Foreman is pulling up second place there. And then their receivers, Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore, and then their tight end, Njoku. So they've still got some folks who can do some damage if you don't come in serious and play them. And their defense, I don't know how much we really need to talk about their defense. They're good in all three phases. Their defense is good. And so, we're going to have to bring it. We can't just come in here and think, oh, it's Cleveland. No, we're going to have to come in and bring our A game on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have to bring it. They were riding a 5-game losing streak coming into this game, so I think you saying that they're probably better off with Winston, and I would agree. He's a gunslinger. He's been known to steal games. He takes chances. There's more to add to this as we kind of break this game down, but I was just watching the highlights with the Ravens. They're a tough, rugged football team. They're flying around, and one player that you forgot to mention is this kid named Cedric Tillman, who's in his second year.
Yeah.
He had 7 receptions for just about 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. So they've got a decent skill player list of guys that are pretty darn good. So I think the run game is going to be a little difficult for us to get going, but I think just like last week, I would say we should lean on using the pass to open up the run. I think that we should try to continue that in this game.
Especially if DJ's back.
I guess now is a better time than any to get into the other side of the ball too, but the Browns are 9th in passing yards allowed.
Yeah.
They've allowed 18 sacks this season. They've given up 37 sacks. They're worst in the league.
They've given up 30.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
If I wrote that down right, I don't even know. But anyway, they're ranked 32nd in third down conversions, so their defense seems to have a lot of issues. So if we can just be consistent, this is the type of team that I think that we can figure it out and get the job done. But yeah, they have a lot of problems, but they're definitely a tough football team. So
yeah, flip to the other side of the ball real quick. Pardon me, I'm looking at the wrong team. Now the Browns are 9th in number of sacks, right? They've got Myles Garrett. They're 9th in sacks through last weekend. So that's no slouch. I mean, we're bottom half of the league in sacks, the Chargers defense, and we're doing decent. So we can't not pay attention to these guys. Their defensive line's stout. Myles Garrett can be a game wrecker. Fortunately, he normally lines up over on Rashawn's side. So that'll be a battle to watch all day long. Rashawn's a stud. It'd be interesting to see if he lines up over Joe. I'd like to see that matchup a few times too. So, and their secondary's solid, really solid secondary. So we've got our work cut out for us. I'd love to see DJ Chark come back for this game. It would be really nice to add that dynamic on top of everything else we've done. But we're gonna have to go in and fight for this win. This is, this isn't one of those we can just kind of chalk it up and go, oh, they had this losing streak. Not even close.
Yeah, another defensive player, not a lot of people actually know that he's on their team and he's been killing, is Zadarius Smith.
Yeah.
He's been a stud. So I think if we can contain those two on the line and give enough time for Herbert, I think it'll be a pretty good game for us. But on that offensive side, definitely, I think people just always think of Jameis Winston as like a goofy player, always saying something funny and it going viral. But he and apparently a couple years ago in Tampa, he had 50 interceptions and 50 touchdowns. So regardless of that, he can sling the ball like you guys said. He can definitely. There's a couple touchdowns. One of them to Tillman. That was. I don't want to glaze the other team, but that was a beautiful ball. He pinpointed that perfect. So my whole thing on this game is we definitely can't let them get ahead of us when it comes to offense. I think if they do start getting rolling, it could go downhill pretty fast. So as long as we execute and really stick on them like glue, I think it will be pretty good. And to answer your question earlier, Kirk, yes, Nick Chubb was injured. He was still dealing with that injury from last year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was an ACL injury. So he just got back. So I'm actually really curious to see how many reps he's going to take and what he's going to do with that second game back, because he's kind of last week was definitely a feeler game for him, I feel like. So if we can just stop the run, we got some great interior D linemen. I think we can do pretty well. And only thing I'm worried about with this game is I've been seeing a lot of holes with our interior O linemen. So if we can contain that and give Herbert, like I said earlier, enough time to either run, screen pass, get the ball down the field, or just give JK some open holes, it's going to be a pretty good game for us.
Yeah, that's a good assessment. Yeah, obviously our tackles are awesome. The weakness on our O-line right now is, the guard and center positions, both guard positions. Zion's still a work in progress. Pipkins, he's an unknown commodity at guard. And I think, we would all agree that Bradley Bozeman is a journeyman kind of guy at best. He's holding down the fort until our ultimate stud center, wherever that person comes from, joins the team, I suspect. But I'm sure, the brain trust of the Chargers understands the center of our O-line by far is the poorest part, where Justin's getting most of his pressures, and the breakdowns on the running game too. So
yeah, so I don't know what he's ranked now, but 2 games ago, I just want to put it out there. Thank you for saving my quarterback. I'm forever grateful. This is not a hit on Bradley Bozeman at all, but he was ranked 34th a couple games ago in centers, meaning there was a couple backups better than him. So that's personally, to me, like I said, I'm grateful that he's part of our team. He has a good team chemistry. He saved our quarterback when he knew that wasn't okay to do. But if he doesn't step it up, I definitely see us getting a new center, maybe in the draft or in the future. But I feel like he's doing his job for now, but he's definitely got to step it up a little bit, because ranked 34th is not going to help our linemen out. I'm just going to put it out there. Like I said, not a hit piece on him, but I think that is, other than wide receiver, is our biggest need when it comes to pickups on the team, whether it's trade, free agency, or the upcoming draft.
Yeah. And Andrew actually mentioned that last podcast, I think, that Bradley was ranked 34th. And
yeah.
It is what it is at this point.
And Brandon, it's the reality too. It's the truth. Like we love him as I guess we love his character. We love who he is as a person. But at the end of the day, this is about winning football games. This is not about our best friend and our feelings towards these players. And that's great and all, but it's the reality and it's the truth. So he's got to improve. Absolutely,
for sure.
Well, let's hope he can. Let's hope he isn't. It's not like he's a new young buck wet behind the ears. This guy's got some seasons under his belt. He may be what he is.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I think we got a little too comfortable with having Corey Linsley there. Dude was a beast, and then when we got someone coming in, like you said, he's a journeyman. I think our expectations were that he was going to execute, especially under this O-line rebuild that we kind of been doing under Jim Harbaugh. And he's been emphasizing, saying that O-line is skilled players and they're one of the most important on the team. So what I'm trying to get at is I think everybody's seen that it needs to improve, and hopefully it does in the near future. Hopefully he steps up. But if we get a better center, that's going to open up better plays on defense, more time. Like Harbaugh said, if we give Herbert 1 extra second, that's going to be perfect. And also will open up more holes for JK. So I'm excited to see what we do at that position, whether if he exceeds our expectations or if we get someone else, whether it's free agency, trade, or like I said, the draft.
If I were a betting man, and again, nothing against Bradley, because I mean, love his natural instincts when he saw that guy pulling the funny business on Justin's right leg. I love that to death. I mean, it was like instincts. But if I were a betting man, I would say there's a different starting center at week 1 next season. That'd just be my gut. They're trying to build something here, and they understand they can't do it all in one season. And Bradley was a guy who knew the system, and he was available. And my hope would be that Bradley sticks around, but maybe he's that guy who's backup. And he's more than serviceable if whoever the stud is comes in, whether it's free agent or a rook. And then you got Nick there. So if it's a rook, train him up, right? And you got Bradley who knows the system. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't know if we got him on a 1 year. I think it was a 1 year. I think we brought him in on a 1 year. But why don't you, let's start with you, Andrew. Kind of give me your keys to this game.
I think it's pretty similar to last week. Like with hopefully DJ Shark coming back in this game, that this offense continues to do what they did as far as getting out to everybody else to help the run game. Like, I think that's kind of been a really good focal point instead of kind of trying to do it the other way, because we had a couple good games, but then they're kind of just hasn't quite been working as far as running to open up the pass. So I like that approach. Let's try it again this week, especially because we know that the Browns, they've got some skill players, and Jameis Winston's a gunslinger. And then on the other side of the football, I want to say that the one thing that stood out to me with his first start, Winston, is the dude holds on to the ball for a long time. And the Ravens were able to capitalize on that. They did a lot of really cool blitzes from the outside. I mean, he holds on to the ball. He's looking to make a big play. So on the defensive side of the ball, we got to capitalize on that. But let's be honest, like, I'm sure that the Browns saw that and they're like, okay, that's a problem, and we're getting ready to play the Chargers, who seem to excel with Jesse Minter. So I'd imagine they're going to create some type of quick game for him. So we just got to be ready for that, and I trust the coaching staff to kind of figure something out. But those are my keys to the victory.
Gotcha. Brennan?
My keys to victory is, one of them is always obvious for us every game. When we're in the red zone, we got to score touchdowns. We've seen in the Cardinals game, field goals aren't going to win you games. So we got to get into the end zone when we're close. And then another thing, I think Andrew said it perfectly when it comes to Jameis Winston. He holds on to the ball really, really long. Hence, there was 5 opportunities where the Ravens, they didn't capitalize, but they could have easily picked them off a record of 5 times. They dropped 5 of them. So if we just capitalize on that, and like Andrew said, I think they are going to go with a quick approach, because they did, I think, realize that just going deep or trying to wait to see plays open up always isn't going to be the best idea. So if we can kind of adjust to that, I think it's going to be a really good game for us. And then the last thing is, I know they're always perfect, but if we could just clean up those little errors we made from the special teams, I think we're going to be good. If we play some hard smash mouth, solid football, I think it's going to be a good game for us.
Yeah, I agree on all fronts. Some of the things I noted here as far as our keys to victory on offense, and this is going to be week in and week out because he's so instrumental to the game. Protect Justin. Okay. Justin's getting hit too much, by the way, and we just talked about the offensive line. 90% of that's coming from the interior line. So do what you need to do. But protect Justin for many, many reasons. First and foremost, his health. Because without Justin, I like Heineke better than I like Stick, but I still prefer to see Heineke on the sidelines and feel comfortable that Heineke's on the sidelines, and have Justin in the game, especially healthy like he was last week and, able to be mobile. So protect Justin at all costs. Run the ball like we did last week. Even if we're not putting up major yards, keep running the ball all 4 quarters. Don't ever give up on it. It keeps the defense honest. And then sustain long drives. I think that's critical. We did a really good job of that 2 games ago, I think it was. Was that against Denver? I think it was, where we had long drives. It was awesome. And to do that, we need to convert third downs, and that'll ultimately will win time possession and will wear their defense down. So there's all kinds of reasons to sustain those long drives and play 4 quarters, play 4 full quarters. I'm still waiting to see what this team looks like playing a complete game for all 4 quarters. So on defense, get pressure on Jameson. He will throw us some picks. As long as he speed up his clock. And he's not a rook, so you would think, but he will. He'll throw a couple of them up. There's going to be a couple opportunities, not to mention maybe a tip ball or something. And as long as we can contain the run and make Jameson beat us, we should be in good shape. One thing this is probably going to trump everything from this point forward, unless I see something different, though. If for the rest of the season, if I only had to pick one thing that would be a key to victory every week, is that Justin brings that attitude that he had this past week. That attitude adds up to all this other crap. Offense, defense, special teams, everybody feeds off of Justin. If Justin brings that guy to the rest of the games, we're going to be really pleased with most of the outcomes. He fired up everybody on that team. It was so good to see. So I'll be really interested watching this game if that Justin shows up. Jim's been working really hard to get that out in Justin, and it's maybe we're just starting to see it. So let's stay tuned and see if we get more of that fire and personality out of Justin. Can't say enough about how that's just going to fire up the rest of the team, So those are my keys to victory. Obviously, special teams, not worried about those guys. That was an anomaly, a couple fluky things. Real quick, what about health of the roster? I don't believe I witnessed any new major injuries. Yes, Joey potentially, even though Jim denied it in his press conference that he's not aware of it, it appeared to us on TV, and it's funny watching the dynamic between Popper and Jim. Popper's pushing it, man. He's pushing it. Jim may get to a point where he's like, get that dude out of here. Okay, he's annoying me. But he's in there, and he's like, just keeps like picking on a particular subject, and Harbaugh's like, I'm giving you no answers. Let's move on. And he keeps picking on him. And one of them was Bosa, but it looked like Joey may be aggravated. Maybe it was an abundance of caution, and he kind of was feeling like it was starting to get aggravated. So they put him back on ice so that he can recover again this week. We'll see. But history shows we should probably be a little bit leery of whether we will see Mr. Bosa playing in Cleveland. Talked about Fulton. He played some snaps. I think they probably had him on a snap count because I didn't see him necessarily come off the field hobbling or anything. But he didn't play the full number of defensive snaps. And then DJ Chark. I want DJ back. I want to see this team with DJ Chark and see what they can be. So are you guys hearing anything else at this early stage of the week on the injury front?
I'm surprised he didn't play last week. So I don't know, man.
It sounded like he was ready to go. Maybe they want to make sure with his injury history, once they get him back, they've got him back. I don't know. But that's the one thing we're going to be speculating week in and week out. So anybody tuning in here, when you hear these discussions between Instagram, Daniel Popper, maybe Chris Hyrie or Money, those guys who got some inside, access, Harbaugh ain't giving us crap. Okay. And that's by design. And if it means keeping the other teams, uninformed, we'll live with it. But it makes it hard for us to kind of go, okay, what's next week going to look like when we don't necessarily know who's going to be up and who's going to be down. So
yeah, so it's gonna. They always put it near the injury reports. Always usually posted on the Wednesday. It seems like. So I think tomorrow we're gonna get a good look on who's injured, who's not, and then Thursday and Friday are obviously going to be the telltale signs. But there's obviously with some of the vets, they take that Wednesday to themselves, take a little rest. But I think tomorrow's going to, once they put up the injury report, it's going to give us a good idea on who's trending and who's not trending going forward to playing in Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'm gathering so far, the way Harbaugh operates is if you're looking on the Thursday report, which is the last one they give before Sunday's game, if they didn't practice on Thursday, if it's a DNP, the odds are pretty high that when they show the pregame, that person's going to be out.
Yeah.
Once in a while, they'll be doubtful, and then the guys who are getting rest or Wednesday, Thursday, they're limited, then we tend to see those guys will show up questionable. And questionable, I think so far, 80, 90% of questionable have played. So, but it's not an exact science is kind of what I'm saying. They're keeping us guessing, and, they're keeping other teams, they're keeping their opponents guessing, and therefore it's also keeping us guessing. So DJ Shark's a great example, when are they going to activate that dude? They've only got 2 more weeks, by the way. There's only I think it's a 4-week window after, or no, maybe it's a 21-day window.
It's 21 days.
Yeah, so they're coming up. If he's not activated this week, I think they're maybe going to turn into a pumpkin, and he's going to be on IR the rest of the season, if I'm not mistaken, how that rule works. So hopefully we see him back. Let's talk a little bit about the AFC West standings, where we sit. With the exception of the Raiders, everybody won last weekend. So we are continuing to technically be in third place. I think it's kind of second and a half place is what I would call it, especially because it's still so early in the season and we have the tiebreaker against the Donkeys. But the stinking Chiefs are 7-0. This is the ugliest 7-0. I think I've literally been watching football probably since 75, and I was a Chargers fan since 78. This is probably the ugliest 7-0 that I can remember in all of my years of watching football. These guys are not dominating anywhere close to it. They're just duct tape and baling wire and cobbling together these wins. But at the end of the day, they're wins. They're 7-0. They're the only undefeated team that remains in the league. And we have to play in the same division as these suckers. And then the Broncos won again, had decent victory, and they're 5-3, and we're 4-3, and couldn't happen to a better team. But the Raiders are 2-6, pulling up the tail end. So we've still got some work cut out for us, but by no stretch. In fact, right now, if the playoffs were today, and I hate this discussion, by the way, but for the sake of just putting it in perspective, if the playoffs were today, we'd be the 7th seed. So we're in based on where we sit today. And the AFC, by the way, they're not lighting it up. So there's some reasons to be optimistic there that we can at least get into the dance. And then you know what happens at that point. It's 0-0, and may the best man win once you get into the show. So right now we're on the inside, and we control our own destiny.
Yeah, this is a really good week as far as the matchups go, because we just have, so coming up, the Broncos are playing Baltimore. Baltimore just dropped the game to the Browns. We've got the Browns. We beat the Broncos. We're eventually going to play Baltimore. So this is a good week for us to really get that W. And then going back to the Chiefs, it's funny because Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert both have 8 passing touchdowns. Herbert has 1 interception, so they have the same amount of, and Mahomes has 9 interceptions.
Yeah. And that doesn't include the ones the refs have called back. Okay. For some defensive PI or some bull crap. So, the Chiefs right now, they're a defensive team. That's probably the best thing we could say about them is they're a defensive team. They just brought in DeAndre Hopkins, right? He played a little bit this weekend. I didn't really watch it, so I don't know how he did. But he was suited up, and I think he played a little bit. And then they just also traded for a defensive player. Who was it?
I'm probably pronouncing this wrong. I'm pretty sure his last name's like Uche or Uche. It's like Uche, something similar to that.
Yeah.
He was on the Jaguars. He's another edge. So they just picked him up. So it's starting to rub, but it's probably gonna be very. I'm very curious to see if he's gonna make an impact at all. If he's gonna make that defense even better than it is. So it's gonna be interesting to see what he's going to bring to the table, especially D-Hop. D-Hop's at the end of his career, but one thing is that Patrick Mahomes, even though he doesn't have the best season stat-wise, he can make those throws and make receivers good. So it'll be very interesting to see what those 2 pickups do to elevate or not make an impact at all for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, their defense has been playing really well. So I think, even a modest improvement on offense would really make the difference for those guys. So hopefully they don't and they implode. We don't need them to be any better than they are, and they're not playing real good right now, but they're 7-0. Another trade took place today. I don't know if you guys caught wind of this.
Deontay Johnson
are bringing in Deontay Johnson from the Panthers. That looks like a pretty good pickup. I think that guy's got some skills. So if the Chargers, the trade deadline, I believe next Tuesday, the 5th, if I'm not mistaken, that's the deadline. If the Chargers were going to bring anybody in at any position, the clock's ticking. We've got a week. If they're going to bring in receivers, pickings are kind of getting a little slim as far as who was available and who's remaining available. Haven't heard anything lately after the what's his name? Tay from the Ravens. Devontae Adams. Haven't heard much on Mike, but I suspect he's still available if a team was interested. I doubt the Chargers are going to pay a lot. That's the thing. I think they're probably content to stick it out unless they get their deal. They're not going to overpay, and Ortiz loves his picks, so he's not going to start just throwing picks away. But pickings are getting kind of slim. I mean, besides Mike, who else is maybe potentially out there? T. Higgins supposedly has been available since the offseason, right? But he's going to cost a fortune. I love the guy. By the way, watch him catch. He catches with his hands. I'd love to have him on our team. He's a difference maker, but you're going to be paying that guy a big old contract. Mark Sanchez, who was announcing the Chargers game this weekend. You remember Mark Sanchez?
Heck yeah.
Quarterback of the Jets. He brought Olave maybe going to the Chargers. I was like, I had never considered that. That would be interesting. I hadn't heard he was on the trade block, but he threw it out there. So I don't know. I don't know what you guys' thoughts are on that. Do we, wait it out, get DJ Chark back, and just see how the season unfolds? Or do we not? Do we bring somebody else in?
I like the idea of bringing something in. I just haven't seen enough to really. I see that Joshua Palmer is getting healthier and he's playing better. All those things are great. We're approaching week 9 and we're potentially getting DJ. I just don't. The way I look at it is there is no let's bat 5. Let's try to maybe get a winning. No, let's if we got to make a move to do something with the season and make the most out of it, that's exactly what we should do. I'm not saying try to give someone this big contract, but I am saying a little bit of help is going to go a long ways, and I really think that helps this whole team out. And the thing that stands out the most to me is Ladd. Like when guys are playing better around Ladd's going to play better, and he seems to be such a good focal point for this team right now. So I like the idea of us making a move. So hopefully.
Yeah, there's a page I follow named JPA Football. I post them on my story a good amount. They're top of the line when it comes to news, coming fast. And there's been a couple rumors. It is rumors, but there's been trade talks. And a couple of the teams have been coming out saying they're willing to hear offers from a number of wide receivers like Garrett Wilson, Cortland Sutton, Adam Thielen. Those are just 3 of them that probably would be a bigger price. Like Kirk said, I don't think we really would be willing to give up or pay a lot. But on the other side, like Andrew said, I would like to see another piece added. I did see something on Mike Williams, though. He had 0 targets, and he was roughly in for about 33 to 40 snaps, and he got 0 targets. And that's another sign that he came out and said it's probably for the best because they just got Devontae Adams. Even if they don't trade Garrett Wilson, and Alan Lazard, a couple of the others. So, in my opinion, in my perfect little world, I feel like Mike Williams would want to join the Chargers again. Justin Herbert has great chemistry with him. And number 2, I don't think he's going to be high when it comes to, like, if they trade, I don't think they're going to ask for much. Or when we take over his contract, I don't think it's going to be – I think it's going to be less than if we would have kept him or re-signed him. So I think that's best of both worlds. We get our guy back for a cheaper offer than what we gave him in the beginning of the season. And like I said, he knows Josh Palmer. He knows QJ. He knows Darius Davis. And most importantly, he knows most of the O-linemen and Justin Herbert. So he's going to be going into a team that he already knows. And I think he's going to, if he stays healthy, I think that would be a really good piece for our team.
Yeah, I think he'd be a fraction of the cost if we got him back today versus what we were paying him before we released him. And as far as the cost of the Chargers, heck, it'd probably be a pick swap. You know, we'll give you, a 4th for a 5th kind of thing, and you throw Mike our way, and call it done. Thielen's an interesting. He's a little older. He's a little long in the tooth. You might be able to get him for not a whole lot. And those guys are imploding right now, so why don't they start having a fire sale? That's an interesting one. I hadn't thought about Thielen. He was dynamic in his prime, and I think he's still got a little bit of gas in the tank there too. So what do you guys think about the rumor that was getting kicked around? I mean, we're going to go play these guys this weekend, but the rumor of Njoku.
It's one of my favorite options, honestly.
Yeah, I think a dynamic tight end would almost, if we can get DJ back and he can stay healthy, a dynamic tight end would probably add more to this team than another wideout.
Yeah, because I kind of consider David Njoku like a receiving tight end. Like he's like a wide receiver in the tight end position, in my opinion. He's very athletic. He can get up there on those balls. His route running, in my opinion, is better than most tight ends when it comes to the speed and just quick cutting. So like Andrew said, that's probably one of my top picks. I've been hearing a lot of people say, no, we need a wide receiver. No, we need a wide receiver. But like Kirk said, if we can get DJ Chark back and then bring Njoku in, sorry, that's UFC.
That's all.
That's UFC. I just watched the card, so my mind's on that, I guess. So if we can bring Njoku in, I think that would elevate our offense even more, and I think that would be amazing. Just I don't know what they would be asking for him for because he is a top-notch player. So
I don't know if Justin would know what to do with a really good dynamic tight end. He hasn't had one since Everett wasn't that guy. In fact, I like the guy before Everett. What's his name? Cook. I preferred him over Everett. Now, when we brought Everett in, I was like, okay, cool. The guy's a little bit younger. He fit the mold, but there was just something that never really transitioned with that guy when we brought him in the fold, where at least Jared Cook, I mean, yeah, he dropped a few balls, but I thought he was better. And, of course, you got Kellen Winslow in my youth, and then you've got Antonio Gates. I'm kind of spoiled, right? But we see it throughout the league. Those teams that have a dynamic tight end, whether it's Kansas City, okay, or Baltimore, right? Andrews is awesome. You had Gronk in the prime of the dynasty for the Patriots. And I know I'm missing a couple guys, and I apologize to you guys, but a dynamic tight end adds a whole nother element to an offense. So, yeah, I would probably go that route if we had a choice. You'd say you can get a dynamic tight end for a fair price, or you can get a wide receiver. Yeah, I'd probably go with the tight end, especially if it's one that I thought we might keep beyond just this season, but we keep for the long term. We'll see. We've got a week. By the way, I saw a rumor today, never heard anything prior to it, but it doesn't shock me. Joshua Palmer might be available.
Yep.
You guys saw that today?
Yep. JPA actually posted it, and I reposted it on my story. They said that he pretty much dissected in the manner of, if it is for the right price, we will go for it. And it kind of makes sense to me. I don't want to get ranting on it, but I think in the start of the season, we were really wanting him. He was really shaping up to be our wide receiver one. We expected big things from him. At least I did. He had pretty good catches and a couple good touchdowns throughout his years when he was underneath the helm of Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. So, in my opinion, he's doing what he needs to do, but I think Ladd's slowly taking over that wide receiver one spot. So if it's for the right price, I think the Chargers are going to go for it because Joe Ortiz, I like him as a GM, so I think he'll be able to work something out. But I'm not sure if I like the fact of him leaving and not getting a weapon for that.
I think there would be a weapon, and I'll say this: we're not going to pay Joshua Palmer, guys. I don't think we are, and I don't think we're going to franchise tag him. I think the way that Ladd's playing and is going to continue to play, when you look at the way that money is allocated across the roster, we're not going to pay Joshua Palmer next year. We're going to focus on other areas of this roster, and I just think that's one of the hard conversations that you have with a football team. But, what arguments are we going to bring to the table for Joshua Palmer here? I think it would be in the package deal for a skilled player if that's how it shaped out. But, yeah, if he goes, that's just – I don't see – we're not going to sign him, so.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I like Josh, but yeah, he has done nothing to differentiate himself.
Exactly.
Josh, I hope you're not watching this. He's kind of average, right? I mean, he's good, but this is the NFL, right? I mean, he's serviceable. It's probably really, and I don't mean that as an insult. It's just he's doesn't have that next. At least he hasn't shown it in his time here, and we were all hoping. Right, we all talked about this coming out of training camp, no longer being under the shadow of Mike and Keenan, that, yeah, he was going to blossom into a number one. I don't see that. So I wouldn't be shocked if they were able to move him for the right price. And even if that movement doesn't bring somebody in, Ortiz is going to get something for him that he can either use to go someplace else and make a deal, or he'll just hoard that for the draft. Because he's gonna get a pick, even if it's a fourth. or maybe even a fifth. I forget, where we dropped. Palmer was a second-round pick, or is he a third round when we brought him in? But,
Boy, that's a great question.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
I know he played in the Canadian League before, but or he's Canadian. Maybe not. He didn't play in the Canadian.
He played at Tennessee.
Yeah. I think he was a third, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if that manifests itself. We've got a week here to it looks like you're looking that up. It'd be interesting to find out if you do find that, Andrew. But and I like Josh. I think he's a great team player. He's a good guy. He's just a good person. But as they're building this team, by the way, if they got rid of Josh and they didn't bring an actual another talent in, yeah, that's what I thought. I thought he was a third. By the way, Keenan was a third, but that's because he had an injury history and then he came in and balled out. But he was whining like a baby because he didn't get to play like the first 3 or 4 games of the season or something. I remember it was a big old to do. But yeah, if we don't bring in anybody, if we can make a deal for Josh and get some more draft capital or whatever, maybe Brendan Rice gets a few more reps. Who knows? So it'll be interesting to see as this last little part as we near the trade deadline. So anybody got anything else to add, Chargers related at all? Whether it's last week's game coming up this week, the roster, any news?
I just want to put a little bow on this game, guys. I just want to say that this is not going to be the Saints game. This is going to be a lot tougher of a matchup. I saw the Browns were able to get the Baltimore Ravens respect in the run game. Actually, I saw Nick Chubb break a couple runs. I think that they're gonna be tough to deal with. I think the defense, as far as the corners and the linebackers, and our whole offensive line and we're gonna get tested, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. They're good. They're tough. That record does not show the full picture on how they are. They just beat the Ravens. So I think it's going to do a lot for our team to show up, win this game. That's going to give us confidence when we get ready to play Baltimore later on this season. So, this is not an easy win, and a win that is going to be really important for us in all facets of how we show up and perform. So.
Yeah, I agree. And in fact, if you went back and looked at the podcast where I did my schedule review and predictions, I'm way off already. I had us being 7-0 right now. I did. I mean, I didn't think we were going to lose to freaking Cardinals, for Christ's sakes. And I thought we had what it took to beat the Steelers. And in fact, I still think we have what it takes to beat the Steelers. But there's a reason you actually play the games, and there's a reason you guys always hear me say any given Sunday. But this was the game where I had predicted the Chargers took their first loss. A lot of people are used to the Browns of old, and they kind of overlook them. They've got a lot of talent on this roster, and they're a pretty damn well coached team as well. And I suspected that Watson was actually going to be better this season, and then some stuff has come up, and he's just not been playing well. But the dynamic of bringing Jameis Winston in, yeah, this is not a pushover game. We're going to have to go there, and we're going to have to earn it. Bottom line. So that's probably the best message is, buckle your chin straps, because this is probably going to be a hard-fought win. Anything to add there, Brennan, before we get into game predictions?
I think you guys said it perfect. It's going to be a gritty game for us. I think their record doesn't show what type of team they are. I think they're going to be very, very tough to play, and I think it's going to take a not flawless, but pretty damn close to it of a game for us to win, because I think their defense will capitalize on our errors, and I think their offense will capitalize on our defensive errors. So if we play classic, good old smash mouth football like Harbaugh loves, and I think we'll be able to win. But like you guys said, it's going to be definitely a hard fought game for sure.
Yeah, now watch we blow them out, 45-3. Wouldn't that be a thing of beauty? I'm waiting for one of those. All right, guys. Well, this is the part of the show. This is where we get into the predictions for this coming week. Andrew, you almost nailed it with the Saints game. I mean, you were within a field goal on each score, put it that way. So that's pretty damn good. So I'm going to give you the honors to start the predictions on this Browns game.
So prior to the season starting, this was a game that I had the Bolts losing, but I had us winning the Cardinals game. So I'm going to do the switcherooski here. I think the Bolts pick this one up. I think Chargers win 2014.
Okay. Relatively low scoring. Brennan?
I think it's going to be a little more high scoring. This might be a little weird of a scoring, but I think it's going to be within a field goal. I'm going to say 27-24 Chargers.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah, that would be interesting if there was that high scoring. Yeah, I think it's going to be a hard-fought battle, too. I think as we get later in the game, let's hope this last game was an indicator we're starting to figure out the second half of games. I think we'll start to separate ourselves, but it's going to be a hard-fought battle. I'm looking at 24-17. So we're not fanboys here, just because we all picked the Chargers. Just saying. All right, gentlemen. Let's hope our boys come prepared to play. Fingers crossed we get to see DJ Chark suited up for the first time this season. I think he can make a difference in taking the top off the defense and kind of loosening things up for our boy JK and for Herbert. Let's hope Herbert brings that attitude and he brings his wheels. That will really help us out. So any last things to add before we wrap this thing and put a bow on it? All right. Well, that's it for this episode of ChargersCast. Appreciate you guys hanging out and joining us. If you haven't done so already, go down below, give us a like, give us a follow. And I think there's also a bell down there if you're subscribing or following us. I think follow us Facebook. I'm not the social media guru here, but subscribe. And when we post the pods, you should get a notification as the new pods drop. And do us a favor, please go leave comments for us. Love to hear your comments, whether you agree with what we've got to say or you disagree. Love to get your comments. We'd love to, have an opportunity to respond. And this podcast is for fans, by fans. And so we'd love to engage with you guys. Andrew, Brennan, good seeing you guys. Always appreciate you guys. Love hanging out with you. And that's it. Let's wrap this thing up. Have a great week. And that's all we got.
Bolt up.
Bolt up.
Baby. Go Chargers.
4 seconds left in the game, but this is likely the final play that matters. End zone wide open. What a night for Mike Williams. And the Chargers have their first lead